The iPad mini 8 is rumored to be getting some major updates, including an OLED display. So here's everything we know about probably the most exciting iPad mini updates ever. But before that, our sponsor Paperlike has an amazing screen protector that offers your iPad the most tactile drawing and note-taking experience, while keeping your display pristine. Here's how slippery the screen was before Paperlike, and this is after. You get so much more resistance, and guess what? It even sounds like paper too. It also reduces reflections and still has some awesome clarity thanks to their nano dots technology. You can check out Paperlike by using the link below. Now, back to the video. Russ Young has stated that the next-gen iPad mini will have an OLED display, confirming Apple's plans to move away from this current LCD technology. An OLED panel will of course bring a significantly higher contrast and true blacks, also improve brightness and better power efficiency for longer battery life compared to the iPad mini 7's LCD screen. And this upgrade should also eliminate that infamous jelly scrolling effect that affected the iPad mini 6th gen and 7th gen LCD panels. And that's because OLED panels do refresh differently. Now, don't expect the iPad mini 8 to launch this year, it's still quite a while away. However, we could possibly see it next year. Apple now tends to leave a multi-year gap between the mini updates. And since the Mini 7 launched back in 2024, while the Mini 6 launched in 2021, it is likely that we could see an iPad mini 8 in 2026 at the earliest, if not in 2027. The good news is that one recent leak suggests a release date in the second half of 2026 as being quite likely, as Apple's supply chain is already laying out the groundwork for the Mini 8's OLED display. There's this new report coming from ZDNet Korea suggesting that Apple has requested OLED panels for future iPad mini models from their suppliers as early as spring 2024. And in response, Samsung Display apparently began developing samples for their 8-inch OLED panels for this next-gen iPad mini, with plans to kick off mass production by the second half of 2025. So this early preparation does make that late 2026 release date seem even more credible. Now, what's interesting here is that the iPad mini 8's move to OLED is actually rumored to coincide with a similar upgrade for the iPad Air. Yes, multiple reports suggest that Apple will be refreshing both the iPad mini and the iPad Air with OLED displays at the same time in 2026. Now, research firm Omdia initially predicted the iPad mini's OLED update to be pushed to 2027, a year after the Air. But then Korean sources like ET News and ZDNet Korea insist that Apple actually plans on introducing both models in 2026 and also at the same time. So by launching the OLED mini alongside an OLED Air, Apple would definitely make its tablet lineup a lot cleaner, with all models apart from the 11th gen base iPad having an OLED display. However, I would be personally surprised if Apple actually launched both iPads at the same time, as they usually tend to upgrade the Air and the Mini at different times. Another upgrade to this brand new iPad mini could be a modest increase in its screen size. Supply chain rumors suggest that the iPad mini's display may actually grow from the current 8.3 inches to roughly 8.7 inches. Apple could achieve this by slimming down the bezels, which are quite thick right now, or by modifying the chassis, essentially giving users a bit more screen space without significantly enlarging the overall device. After all, a bit more screen area would make the Mini 8 even better and even more immersive for reading, gaming, and watching content, while still preserving this ultra-portable feel that the Mini is known for. However, despite adopting OLED, the 8th gen Mini is actually not expected to gain the Retina XDR capabilities of the iPad Pro's OLED display. So it's not going to be as high-end. And speaking of high-end, if you want to make your display look high-end, well, you can check out our latest designs from our app, Wallpapers. Each design is a 1x1 8K image, so it scales to any device, making a pack like Lucid Loops look awesome on your phone, tablet, or even on your desktop. Our designers are from all around the world, and they're all responsible for these awesome designs. You can check them all out on this dedicated creator page or on the store page where their name is always displayed below their work. Each artist has a different style, so there's always something for you to like. Wallpapers is free to download, and with each pack drop, you also get the first design for free as well. And right now, you've got over 100 free 8K wallpapers to pick from, with no ads as well. You can get wallpapers for free on iOS and Android, and you also support the channel and our designers if you check it out using the links below. Okay, now back to the iPad mini's OLED display specs. there are some new reports that indicate that Apple will be using a single stack OLED panel, so likely an LTPS OLED rather than the more advanced dual stack OLED technology that Apple uses in their iPad Pros. This means that a mini's OLED screen may not reach the same 1600 nit of peak brightness, and most importantly, it is likely to still remain at 60 Hz without any ProMotion support. And same goes for the iPad Air, as it looks like, just like with the iPhones, Apple wants to reserve this 120 Hz ProMotion feature for their Pro tablets. Not just to differentiate the lineup more, but also to keep down the manufacturing costs. However, the 8th Gen iPad mini should get a significant boost in performance to support all of its upcoming software features. The current iPad mini 7 already runs on Apple's fairly fast A17 Pro chip, and by the time the iPad mini 8 launches, it will likely jump to either the A18 Pro or even the A19, depending on if we get the mini 8 in 2026 or 2027. This would ensure that the iPad mini 8 will be able to handle all of Apple's upcoming iPadOS software updates, especially when it comes to Apple Intelligence, as well as be able to still play all of their AAA games, only now even better. Oh, and it's also been speculated that Apple may consider using an M-series chip for the iPad mini 8, given Apple's push to bring desktop-class power to their iPads, such as, the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, where we do have M-series processors. And if they do indeed do this, as well as add an OLED display to it, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually call it the iPad mini Pro, or the iPad Pro mini, and then have the current model at a lower price. We also recently got some leaks suggesting that iPadOS 19 will feature an updated stage manager, making it even closer to macOS by introducing a menu bar, which would honestly look so amazing, and it would be so useful to have on an iPad. Now, the current iPad mini models don't officially support Stage Manager, and what's really interesting about this leak is that iOS 19 may also bring external display support with Stage Manager to USB-C equipped iPhones. And if this happens to iPhones, I would say it's almost guaranteed that it would also happen to, well, the iPad mini, which would also perfectly justify including an M-series chip for even more advanced multitasking and stage manager support compared to what we have on the iPhones. What M-series chip though? Well, if I had to guess, I would probably guess the M3 if this new iPad mini launches in 2026, because in that case, the iPad Air would get bumped to the M4. Of course, the iPad Pro models will get bumped to the M5, which, by the way, the M5 iPad Pros are rumored to launch later this year. Alternatively, since Apple will be introducing the M6 chip next year, it's also possible that the iPad mini could jump straight to the M4, with the iPad Air then moving up to the M5 and the iPad Pro then getting the M6. Although, I feel like the M3 is more than a good enough choice for the iPad mini 8. Either way, all of these chips are more than powerful enough, so we'll just have to wait and see how Apple wants to differentiate their iPad lineup. Now, what about the design? Well, aside from the thinner bezels in order to achieve the larger display, the iPad mini 8 may also be thinner and lighter than the current model. The last major redesign was back in 2021, so the 8th gen isn't expected to completely redesign it. But it could get Apple's latest design treatment that Apple's been applying to the latest iPad Pros and the iPhone 17 Air. Essentially, there's been a number of leaks, including what Mark Gurman has been saying, that Apple is aiming to have every new device from each of their categories be the thinnest device in that category. We first saw this with the M4 iPad Pro in 2024, the thinnest iPad ever. Then, this continued with the Apple Watch Series 10, also the thinnest Apple Watch ever. And then this will further continue this year with the iPhone 17 Air, which will also be the thinnest iPhone ever made. So there's no reason to think that the iPad mini would ever be left out. Plus, a thinner, lighter iPad mini 8 would make it even more comfortable to hold one-handed. And Apple could also use this update to also change a few other aspects of its design in order to align the iPad mini more to their other iPads. For example, they could finally change the front camera to be in landscape orientation, which would be better suited for video calls, as well as possibly launch a Magic Keyboard, especially if the whole body gets a bit bigger. But overall, do you expect the iPad mini 8 to retain this portable, one-handed all-screen design with Touch ID in the power button, but with a bit more polish, maybe some weight reduction, a thinner design, and possibly some new color options as well. Also, you may have recently seen that Apple is working on an iPhone Fold that is essentially targeting the iPad mini form factor when unfolded with an 8-inch display as opposed to the iPad mini's current 8.3-inch screen. Although, fear not, as Apple is not going to replace the mini line with the iPhone Fold, which will be a completely separate product. Minchiko reiterated this, and the price difference between the two products would just be astronomical, so it wouldn't make any sense for the mini line to be discontinued. And speaking of the price, the iPad mini 8 will likely remain a premiumly priced compact tablet, although an OLED screen and an M-series chip could actually make it even more expensive. You see, the current iPad mini starts at $499 for 128 gigabytes of storage, which is only $100 less than the larger iPad Air, which comes with the M3 chip, for $599. So yeah, the iPad mini is already quite expensive. So if they do bump the price of it, they will likely have to increase the price of the iPad Air as well, especially if they want to keep that same $100 price gap between the two. But yeah, all in all, I'm quite excited for this OLED iPad mini. I think that it would be the perfect compact tablet, especially with that OLED screen. Also, a very good alternative to an iPhone Fold when unfolded. And speaking of which, if you want to check out our video on the iPhone Fold, you can check it out right here. And let me know, yeah, what do you guys think, and if you're thinking of picking up an OLED iPad when it launches. Check out Wallpapers for some awesome free 8K wallpaper designs. I'm Daniel, this means ZONEofTECH, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.